My boyfriend demanded I pretend to be Japanese to impress his friends and I refused. The shocking fight that made me question our entire relationship. You know, you could totally pull off being Japanese, my boyfriend, Tom, said with a grin as we sat in the quiet, cozy living room of our apartment. His blue eyes sparkled with what I hoped was innocent mischief. "What are you talking about?" I replied, a hint of amusement in my voice. I'd known Tom for over a year, and his love for Japanese culture was well documented. He'd often regale me with tales of anime marathons and sushi binges. "Well, you've got the right look. And your English is so good, they'd never guess you weren't from Japan," he continued, his enthusiasm unflagging. His blonde hair flopped over one eye as he leaned in closer, his fingers tracing a line on the arm of the couch. "What's going on, Tom?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He sat back, sighing. "There's this party on the weekend. High school reunion kind of thing. And, well, my buddies might say some stuff if they know you're Chinese. Just a little white lie, okay?" Tom's words hung in the air, the silence thickening around us. I felt a strange mix of emotions, partly offended, but mostly confused. Why would they care? I questioned, my voice calm despite the turmoil in my thoughts. "They're just ignorant. They have this weird obsession with Japanese culture. They'd think it's so cool if you were Japanese," he said, trying to smooth over the tension with a shrug. "But what about your ex, Rachel?" I said, referring to the one ex-girlfriend of his that I'd actually met. She was beautiful, with deep brown eyes and a smile that could light up a room. "Won't she be there?" Tom's smile wavered. "Yeah, she'll be there," he admitted, his eyes dropping to the floor. "But it's not about her, I swear. It's just, for the guys." I sat there, trying to digest his words. Rachel was African American, and Tom had dated her for almost 2 years. He'd often talked about her fondly, sharing stories of their time together. But now he was asking me to pretend to be something I wasn't, all for the sake of impressing his high school friends. "So, what do you think?" he asked, looking up at me hopefully. "I'll go to the party," I said slowly. "But I'm not pretending to be Japanese. I want people to know me for who I am, not some stereotype." Tom's face fell, but he nodded. "Okay, but just maybe, do something a little, to give them that idea?" "I'll wear a kimono," I said, deadpan. "How subtle is that?" He chuckled nervously. No, not that. Just maybe, I don't know, speak a little Japanese or something." "Tom," I said firmly, "I'm not going to lie about who I am. If they can't accept me for being Chinese, then maybe they're not the kind of friends you need." The room grew quiet again. Outside, the setting sun painted the sky with soft pastels, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere in our little home. The days leading up to the party were a blur of unspoken tension. Tom avoided eye contact and fidgeted whenever the event was mentioned. I tried to keep our conversations light, but the shadow of his request lingered, casting a pall over our normally carefree banter. On the night of the party, I picked out an elegant red dress that was definitely not Japanese. It was a silent statement, a declaration that I would not conform to his friends' narrow-minded expectations. As we drove to the venue, an upscale bar downtown, Tom's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. When we arrived, the place was already buzzing with laughter and chatter. The air was thick with the scent of cologne and hairspray, a heady mix that brought back memories of high school dances I'd attended back in Beijing. Tom's friends spotted us immediately. A chorus of "Tomsy's back" echoed through the bar as a group of men in polished shoes and designer t-shirts swarmed around us. They greeted him with slaps on the back and hearty laughs, their eyes curiously darting to me. I felt like a trophy, a prize to be displayed, and I didn't like it. The first to approach was a burly man with a thick beard. "This must be your new girl, Tom," he boomed, his breath reeking of beer. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," I said, extending a hand. "It's nice to meet you." He took it, his grip firm. "Lily, huh? That's a pretty name. Japanese, right?" I felt Tom tense beside me. "Actually," I began, "I'm Chinese." The man's smile slipped. "Oh," he said, his voice deflating. "Well, still exotic, I guess." The conversation stumbled on, Tom's friends awkwardly trying to cover their disappointment. Rachel appeared in the crowd, her eyes locking with mine. She offered a tight smile, her gaze flicking to Tom and back. The air grew heavier, the music seemed to fade into the background. Tom's ex-girlfriend was dressed in a stunning black dress that accentuated her curves. She looked uncomfortable, her eyes scanning the room as if looking for a way out. As the night progressed, the whispers grew louder, the stares more blatant. Rachel was the only other person of color in the room, and it was clear she felt just as out of place as I did. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. His friends weren't just ignorant about Asian cultures, they were also uncomfortable with anyone who didn't fit their narrow mold. I caught Rachel's eye across the crowded room. She nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the tension between us. We found ourselves drawn together, two outsiders navigating a sea of high school cliques and old prejudices. The party was in full swing when Rachel approached me. "Hi," she said, her voice a soft contrast to the cacophony around us. "You're Lily, right?" "Yeah," I replied, taking a sip of my watered-down cocktail. "It's nice to finally meet you." "You too," she said, her eyes searching my face. "Tom's been talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. "Has he?" "Yeah," she said with a small smile. "He says you're amazing. But why'd he tell everyone you're Japanese?" I sighed. "It's a long story, but apparently, his friends have a thing for it." Rachel's smile disappeared, replaced by a look of understanding. "I know," she murmured. "I went through the same thing." "What do you mean?" "When we were dating, he'd tell everyone I was biracial. Thought it'd be cooler, I guess." She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling. I tried to ignore it, but it hurt. My heart sank. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said, her voice strong. "It's his problem, not ours. They're just a bunch of insecure little boys trying to impress each other." Her words were a balm to my bruised ego. Rachel and I talked for what felt like hours, sharing stories and finding common ground. As the night wore on, Rachel and I grew closer, while Tom grew more and more distant. He hovered on the outskirts of our conversation, looking uncomfortable and out of place. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at his discomfort, a silent retribution for his earlier request. The partygoers grew louder, their drinks stronger. Rachel and I retreated to a quieter corner, sharing a knowing look as Tom's friends began to regale us with their hilarious high school escapades, each one more cringe-worthy than the last. "You know, I used to date an Asian girl," one of them slurred, his eyes glazed over. "Best sex of my life." Rachel rolled her eyes and leaned closer to me. "It's like they think being Asian is a personality trait," she whispered. "Or a fetish," I murmured back. We both laughed, a laugh filled with the bitterness of shared experiences. Rachel was warm and genuine, and I couldn't help but wonder why Tom had ever chosen these people over her. Tom hovered nearby, his gaze darting between us like he was watching a tennis match. His discomfort was palpable, his smile forced. He'd tried to join in our conversation a few times, but we gently steered it back to safer topics, leaving him with nothing to contribute. As the night grew later, Rachel's smile grew sadder. "You know," she said, "I was hoping that maybe things had changed for him, that he'd grown up." I nodded, my heart heavy. "Me too." The music shifted to something slower, and Rachel's gaze drifted to the dance floor. "Do you want to dance?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I glanced at Tom, who was now deep in conversation with the bearded man from earlier. "Why not?" I said, taking Rachel's hand. We danced, moving to the rhythm of a song that neither of us knew, but it didn't matter. We were two strong, beautiful women, reclaiming our space in a room that didn't want us to be ourselves. As the final notes of the song faded away, Rachel and I stepped apart, both of us breathless with more than just exertion. We shared a look that said everything we needed to without uttering a single word. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "No, thank you," she replied, her eyes shining. "It's nice to know I'm not the only one who's had to deal with this." Tom was nowhere to be seen. I scanned the room, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger that he'd put me in this position, and relief that I'd found an unexpected ally in Rachel. "I should find Tom," I murmured, though I had no intention of doing so. Rachel nodded, understanding. "Take care of yourself, Lily," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're worth more than his high school fantasy." With that, she slipped away into the crowd. I watched her go, feeling a sense of camaraderie that had been missing all evening. The party wound down, and Tom finally approached me, his cheeks flushed and his eyes bloodshot. "Had fun?" he asked, his voice too loud, too forced. I looked at him, really looked at him, for what felt like the first time that night. "I did," I said truthfully, "but I think it's time to go." "What's wrong?" he asked, his smile slipping. "I don't belong here," I replied, "and I shouldn't have to pretend to be someone else to fit in." His expression fell. "Lily, I'm sorry," he began. But I cut him off. "You know what, Tom? I don't think you are, and maybe we both need to think about what we really want in a relationship." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the now dim bar, surrounded by his past. The cool night air hit my face like a slap as I stepped outside, Rachel following close behind. She hailed a taxi, and we both slid into the back seat, our hearts racing. "Where to?" the driver asked. Rachel gave him her address. "You can just drop me off first," I said. "No, let's go to your place," she insisted. "We're not done talking." As the taxi pulled away, I couldn't help but feel like a weight had been lifted. Rachel had seen through the facade and offered me something genuine, something Tom hadn't been able to provide all night. Her apartment was a short drive, nestled in a quiet neighborhood that was a stark contrast to the raucous bar we'd just left. She led me inside, the scent of incense and candles creating a serene environment that washed away the tension of the party. "Would you like some tea?" Rachel offered, moving into her kitchen with a grace that seemed at odds with the chaos we'd just escaped. "That would be lovely," I said, taking a seat on her plush couch. The living room was tastefully decorated with African art, a stark contrast to Tom's obsession with all things Japanese. We sat in companionable silence as Rachel prepared the tea, the only sound the soft clinking of porcelain. When she returned, she handed me a cup filled with a steaming, fragrant liquid. "It's from my mother's garden," she said with a smile. "It's supposed to be calming." "I could use some of that," I replied with a small laugh, taking a sip. The tea was sweet and floral, with a hint of something earthy. It was the perfect antidote to the sourness of the evening. "Tom's a good guy," Rachel began, her voice gentle, "but he's got a lot of growing up to do." "I know," I said, setting the cup down, "but I can't be the one to change him." Her eyes met mine, understanding in their depths. "You shouldn't have to," she said. "You should be with someone who loves you for you." The taxi ride to Rachel's apartment was filled with an unspoken understanding. We sat side by side, the warmth of the car a stark contrast to the chilly silence of the night outside. Rachel's hand was comforting in mine, a silent promise that she had my back. When we arrived, she led me into her cozy living room, the walls adorned with vibrant tapestries and the faint scent of sandalwood filling the air. "Make yourself at home," she said, disappearing into the kitchen. The sound of water boiling and cups clinking was a comforting backdrop as I sank into the plush couch. Rachel emerged with a tray of tea, setting it down on the coffee table with a soft thud. She sat down next to me, her eyes searching my face. "You know, I thought I was the only one who had to deal with his quirks," she said, her voice filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. "Quirks?" I echoed, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of my lips. "Yeah, that's what I call them," Rachel said with a sigh. "He's got this whole exotic thing going on. It's like he thinks it makes him more interesting." The tea was a warm embrace, a balm for my frayed nerves. We talked long into the night, sharing stories of our childhoods and our hopes for the future. Rachel spoke of her dreams of opening an art gallery, her voice filled with passion and determination. I listened, feeling a kinship with her that I hadn't expected to find in this strange situation. As the hours ticked by, the conversation turned to our relationships with Tom. Rachel spoke candidly about their time together, the good and the bad. I found myself doing the same, sharing moments that had brought me joy and moments that had left me feeling unseen. "It's like he's afraid of what his friends think," Rachel said, her voice tinged with sadness. "But why should that matter more than how he feels about you?" "Exactly," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to be anyone's prop, or anyone's lie." The conversation with Rachel was both cathartic and eye-opening. As we sipped our tea, I realized that Tom's behavior wasn't just about race or stereotypes, it was about his fear of not fitting in with his high school crowd. It was a fear I knew all too well from my own experiences in a new country. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. I needed to hear that. Rachel leaned over and gave me a gentle hug. "You're welcome," she said. "But it's time for you to show him who you really are." Her words resonated within me, and by the time I left her apartment, I had a plan. The following weekend, I invited Tom to my favorite Chinese restaurant, a small, family-owned place with authentic dishes and a warm, welcoming atmosphere. "What's the occasion?" he asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. "Just a little cultural exchange," I replied with a smile, not giving away my true intentions. When we arrived, the aroma of ginger and garlic filled the air, and the sound of clinking dishes and lively chatter surrounded us. I ordered a feast of traditional dishes, explaining each one to him with pride. His eyes widened with every new flavor, his preconceived notions of Chinese food shattering with each bite. "This isn't what I expected," he said, his voice filled with wonder. After dinner, we stumbled upon a local Chinese festival, the streets alive with vibrant lanterns, dragon dances, and the laughter of families. I took his hand and led him through the crowd, pointing out the various traditions and sharing stories from my childhood. His eyes lit up with genuine interest, and for the first time, I saw him looking at me not as an exotic prize, but as a woman with a rich heritage. As we watched the dragon dance, I turned to him. "Tom, I need you to understand something. Being Chinese isn't just about the way I look or the food I eat. It's about my family, my history, my soul." He nodded, his eyes meeting mine with a newfound respect. "I get it, Lily. I'm sorry for the party. I didn't mean to make you feel like you had to hide. Our relationship took a turn that night. Tom started to learn Mandarin with me, eager to understand the language that sang in my heart. He met my parents and embraced the traditions they held dear. And slowly, but surely, his friends began to see me not as a stereotype, but as a person. One evening, as we sat on the couch, sharing a bowl of homemade dumplings, Tom turned to me. You know, I never knew how beautiful Chinese culture was before I met you. I leaned into him, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the spicy food. And I never knew how beautiful it was to be seen for who I am, I said. The party was a distant memory, a lesson learned. Our bond grew stronger with each shared experience, each new tradition embraced. And as we watched a Chinese movie with English subtitles, the sound of laughter and love filling our apartment, I knew that Rachel's words had been right. We both deserved to be loved for who we truly were. Tom had changed, but not because Rachel and I had tried to change him. He'd changed because he'd been exposed to a world beyond his narrow-minded friends' fantasies. A world where people like me, Rachel, and his newfound appreciation for Chinese culture didn't have to fit into a box. But the journey wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Every day brought new challenges, new conversations about race and identity. But with Rachel's friendship and Tom's growing understanding, I felt ready to face whatever came our way. As we grew closer, Rachel became a part of our lives, a bridge between our pasts and futures. And together, the three of us showed each other that love had no boundaries, no race, no nationality. It was just two people, learning, growing, and discovering the beauty of being themselves.